Good science, by definition, allows for more than one opinion. Otherwise, you merely have the will of one man, which is the basis of cult.
If it's not in the frame, it doesn't exist.
I'm as mad as hell, and I'm not gonna take this anymore!
I'm funny how? I mean funny like I'm a clown and a loser?
Where you been?
Drunk. Wendy? Darling? Light of my life.
What's your one purpose in life?
To explode, of course.
I like death with sex. How about you, Casey? You like sex with death?
Yeah, so fuck up and die.
Rutger. How do you say his name? Rutger?
Rutger? Who?
Rutger Hauer. The dude in Blade Runner.
Rutger?
What is it? Rooter? I really don't know how to say
That's
it.
Harrison Ford, you idiot.
No, the bad guy, dude.
The
Nexus 6.
Was it
dude.
Roy?
No, yeah, well, his name was like he's
just like
credited,
Roy or something.
Credited as baddie, and I'm like, what the fuck was his real?
Really?
What was his? Like,
Pretty sure it was like Roy or something.
Rooker. Is it Rooker Hauer?
Yeah, that sounds right.
Rooker.
I thought you were trying to say.
Rutger.
I thought you were trying to say like Deckard at first. I'm like, you dummy.
No, but I can say the word Deckard. That's
I don't know. Sometimes
they say his name like 50 times in the movie, but
I've seen you struggle over some words. So let's be real here. Who knows?
yeah,
So,
pal, yeah. The American public system, dog. That's like a public school system.
I know. This is the Coldest Ever Knowledge podcast. That's Jordan, one big tooth Howard.
Yeah, maybe.
Levi over here, negative
With
teeth Robinson.
No teeth. Yeah, no teeth Robinson over there, bud. You got your teeth. I don't even know what you're doing. So when you had your tooth pain, were you did you have like that cloth wrapped around your head with like the knot at the top? You like tied it up.
Pretty much,
You know?
actually. It was way ghettoer, but like. So I'm a man of many pains, and so I obviously have a ice pack in the freezer at all times, but it has like it's meant for your back, and so it has like straps. I strapped it to my face.
Nice.
The other night, and
while you were abscessing to death.
It did help. It did. It was kind of like it stopped the throb. It went from a screaming, soul-deafening, screeching pain to just like a dull, soul-deadening kind of like aching agony. It was great.
That's cool, dude. That's literally all you could ask for.
I was literally in my kitchen being like, man, I wish I was a replicant, because do they feel pain? But they feel emotional pain.
They do feel emotional pain, and they feel pain when they die. I guess maybe I don't know. I did like that how it's like the only way you can like make them hurt and like stop them is if you kill them. Like that was like the big threat was like he's so strong that like he doesn't you can't fight him. You just have to kill him. And it's like
yeah.
All right.
So anyway, obviously, if you haven't caught on already or read the title of the podcast that you clicked on, today we are talking about the original Blade Runner movie. And
1982's
The Thing, which, yeah, I read that came out the same weekend or whatever, which is bonkers.
Yeah. Yeah, right.
But yeah, Blade Runner, and that we obviously, just as a disclaimer at the top, we watched the final cut, which is agreed to be the definitive edition.
And it is. And I will kind of get into fun facts about why that's considered the definitive. And my opinion. Okay,
well,
anyway.
It makes sense because this is the third time I've seen it, and the first time I watched it, I definitely watched the theatrical cut with the voiceover and like the happy ending, and but then I watched it again, and I think it was the final cut right after it came out. I think when they announced the new Blade Runner.
07. Oh yeah. Right.
I waited, and then they were like, "Oh, they're coming out with a Blade Runner sequel," and so I watched it again. And I was like, oh, this movie rules. And I was like, oh, I was just too young. And then I was like, oh, okay. Well, that also, I watched the much better version. And then obviously I watched that same version the other night. So I'm assuming it is my synopsis. I did not write one.
I don't think we really write them anymore. I think we just kind of riff.
I like both ways. One day I'll write them if I have the time.
I know.
I come across a little bit more eloquent when it's written down, but...
Yeah, true.
So I'll give you the gist, and hopefully I don't blur the lines because I watched the sequel right after this one, so I do have like a little bit of weird like Am I remembering that movie or the other movie?
Yeah.
So anyway, so the original Blade Runner, it follows it's in a dystopian future. Cyberpunk basically invented the genre. Neon, rain-soaked, overpopulated streets. There's these replicants, which are basically androids, and then these things called Blade Runners that are basically cops to hunt down the androids, which have been outlawed on Earth. Deckard is the main character. Follows him. He's a Blade Runner that is taken out of retirement to hunt down these 4 replicants who have killed a bunch of people on their way to Earth. And it kind of follows him trying to slowly track them down while they're also going about their time trying to basically get to the Tyrell Corporation so that they can extend their lifespan, because replicants only have a 4-year lifespan. And so the main bad guy, when we decide his name, Roy or whatever, he leads the group to try and find.
Name.
No, I'm pretty sure they call him like Roy or whatever. He's got a name. He's got a weird name. Not a weird name. He's got like a really basic sounding name.
I'm really mad that it's like baddie is the only thing that's in here.
Anyway,
we've never seen a movie before.
I know. Anyway, so Deckard is trying to find these guys. Then he meets this other lady from the Tyrell Corporation who is like a new version of a replicant that has memories of the past and doesn't realize that she's a replicant, named Rachel. And he immediately starts falling for her. And because she's like more human than human, it's like she's like, how could she be a replicant? She doesn't even seem like it. So it's this very noir. He's pulling the threads while, the replicants are trying to get to the top, and he slowly goes across killing each one. Kind of bumbling his way through it, honestly, a little bit.
But when you say emphasis on slowly,
yeah, he and like every single time he gets in a life or death situation, he's like, an external force he would die if it wasn't for something else. But
so he definitely is like the worst protagonist I've ever encountered. It sucks because dude,
he's really a reactive protagonist for sure.
Yeah, he's reactive. He's like he's worse than Vertigo, dude. Like fucking the main guy in Vertigo. I thought that guy was a fucking piece of chewed bubblegum, but this is just.
It ends with there's maybe Roy dies and he makes.
It's Roy. It's Roy Batty. I looked it up.
There you go.
Roy, you killed it.
I know. I got it, man. He dies and he makes a speech and he saves Deckard's life before he dies. And Deckard's like, whoa, maybe they're like human after all, especially since I love one. And then he's like, oh, maybe I'm not real. What's reality? What's human? And then it ends, more or less. And they have to flee because he's in love with Rachel. So the movie ends with them fleeing God knows where together.
And that's the thing.
Because she is marked for death because it's illegal and you can kill any replicant on site on Earth.
On Earth, right. No replicants allowed to be on Earth.
So he has to kill her. It's like illegal not to. He's like harboring her. And
right. And it is kind of interesting because they do have like, there are the tells.
But who's going to enforce that at that point? You know what I mean? I don't know. It's because like Tyrell dies and then Sebastian, who's like the guy that they used to get to Tyrell, who's the.
And it's hard to talk about this movie without like wanting to bring in the sequel, because the sequel I feel like flushes a lot of this out, like gives this like, because it's like the Tyrell Corporation gets bought out, right, and then what's his name is in it, and
and the sequel, I forget it's like Wendell. It's not that. It starts with a W though.
Yeah.
They buy out. Jared Leto buys out the Tyrell Corporation and like basically expands it and makes it even more profitable and better, and like helps humans like colonize the solar system easier. Even more so than Tyrell, because and I watched both back to back, and he's like a way more of a villain.
Tyrell is, or
no? Tyrell just seems like.
Tyrell's just kind of a horn dog. He reminds me of Metropolis, like 100%.
He wanted to make sex robots, and he's like, sure, slaves too, but I'm like,
right. He's like, well, military workforce, sure, why not? they only live 4 years, and then you throw them in the trash, whatever. So it's like, he's like, it's a great business model, dude. It's obsolete in 4 years. So what are they, Apple? But it's like
Yeah.
Tyrell does seem a lot more innocent than than whoever the other guy is in the other one. But I don't know. He's also
back it up. So
I know, yeah. What was your first impression?
What was the last? I was going to ask you
Yeah.
that because I know you'd seen it once or twice before as well, and then it's been a long time as well because I haven't watched it in 7, 8 years or however long.
Yeah, I want to say I watched it. Yeah, maybe 8, 10 years ago, and I definitely watched the voiceover version, and I really didn't remember anything necessarily except for the vibe, the mood,
the visuals and the world building. You know what I mean?
The visual and the world building, and the deaths, and the plot. Because the plot is so that's where it does live in that neo noir.
Oh yeah, I forgot how hardcore of a noir this is. They literally some scenes are literally just like instead of saxophones, they're just like synths.
It's synth.
And it sounds exactly. It's cool.
So we picked score for this month because we wanted to an emphasis and focus on score. And this personally, so Godfather, the score in Godfather, it accompanies it well for the time period and all that. We talked about it. Go listen to our podcast. But this score elevates it 100%, dude.
Oh yeah,
this score blew my mind. The opening, dude, and it just blasts in, and you're
it knows when to be heavy, but it's weirdly kind of dreamy and kind of light. I don't know, and that really kind of encapsulates the mood for this movie because when I originally watched it, I was expecting a cool sci-fi movie, but it's much more of there's a couple shootouts and some violence and stuff, but it's much more of the slow plotting, introspective kind of film that's more about what does it mean to be human? Which obviously this is not the first movie to ask that kind of question,
no.
But I think it poses it in one of the better ways. You know what I mean? Of a lot of movies that do that.
So
especially tackling AI and that kind of thing.
Yeah, right. That and so we do have to give credit to the fact that it's a Philip K. Dick novella, and that came out in 60 something, 68 or something, the late 60s, and it posed that question, and this question's been asked time and millennia as long as humans existed. What if there is
God, is this the third Philip K. Dick adaptation we've watched?
Well, yeah, we watched. Well, dude, we
watched Total Recall.
Total Recall, Scanner
Darkly, and then this
Blade Runner. Yeah,
that's the big ones though.
Those are
It's kind of funny.
But anyways, so he just it's it comes off the back of that. But I think what they did is they definitely modernized it, and then it's weird. It's man, dude, there's so much has aged poorly from this movie. But then there's so much of the philosophy behind it that stands really strong and true. And it is a sophisticated movie, but it's also that is damaging. So that's why 5 versions of this movie exist.
Yeah.
Is because they wanted to get it right. And this is a hard movie to nail down for people in the world because I don't know what version they've seen. They don't, and it sucks because you don't want a movie to make you do homework. And this is definitely a movie that you have to read about it later. You have to go deeper into it to fully appreciate the world.
I guess that's
and
fair
everything there.
as far as the actual filmmaking of it and
Victoria
the process.
watched this. Yeah, Victoria watched this, and she was like, this is really bad. She's like, yes, I can understand. It's great, but the movie's bad. And I kind of was the whole time we're watching, I'm like, this is kind of embarrassing. This is it's one of my favorite movies that I think of fondly, but then watching it, I'm like, dude, it's weird. I'm like, why? I'm like, I love this movie because I know what a cultural icon it is.
Yeah.
And I know exactly what it like everything that it has spawned and all, and like Ridley Scott's like his his influence on film and the people's
Oh,
passion
sure.
about
I
this
mean,
movie.
like,
and what
this
it's-
is one
what
of the
it's turned
things that,
into.
like, basically helped invent a
It's bigger
genre,
than
you know what I mean?
It's bigger
And
than itself. Right, exactly. It totally 100% created fucking cyberpunk. Like that's what it gave the visual stimulus to cyberpunk. And so it breaks my heart to
especially
watch the movie
for
and,
film, yeah.
Right, definitely for film. Yeah, of course. And so it's like tough to watch this movie again because I
don't know, man. Like,
I deeply love it, but it's also very flawed. And
I
think
agree.
You mentioned that a little bit. So.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I feel like this time around, I really liked it a lot more than my previous viewings, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. And we discussed before how I probably liked the sequel more, and now I don't know. I might like the original more.
Oh, weird. Okay, because I still stand in favor of the sequel,
I mean,
but...
they're really close, so it's hard for me to say. I think the original is way better written, because that's the thing about this movie. It's like it's got a lot of big ideas, and some of the ideas hit, and it's very visually interesting, and does a really good job creating like a atmosphere and a world. But it is like from like a just a storytelling point of view, really kind of clunky. And I think that's because there is, like you said, there's so many fucking versions.
Well, dude,
and even the definitive version, it feels like
it's not
slapped together. Like this is the best version we could get with what we had. But it definitely seems like a case of like, your ideas exceeding your ambition is like too much to exceed what was actually able to be created, which and that feels like that's where the flaws come from. Is like I feel like they did the best they could to try and make this thing this like ultimate apex like sci-fi story with this world and like this beautiful piece of cinema, and they really succeeded in a lot of ways, but then they really kind of like, I don't know, didn't quite in a couple other ways. I don't know. Because it's like, at the end of the day, it's like you remember, it's like it's got all the pacing that it has, and it's got like all these scenes about like, but all the scenes say the same thing a lot of the times. You know what I mean?
Sure, right. But I appreciate them. The scenes, my favorite thematic scenes outside of like the cityscapes, and all that, like that. The stuff where it's like the visual impact is great, but I mean for story wise, the Rucker test or whatever they're called, I think it's like Rucker, right? Or
something like that. However, they tell the replicants with like the questions and they're checking their eyes and everything.
Yeah, they check their eyes and they ask them and I always love that too when it's like you have to trick a robot, so you ask them like weird kind of riddle-y questions. And I love that. I love that so much. Like it's great. And like that, and the opening scene of this, because this version opens different, right, than the theatrical. That's what's hard. I'm like trying to. Dude, I wish I watched the theatrical.
They're mixed in my head, kind of. Like,
they're mixed in my head, dude.
This is what's the newest for me, but
right, because there could be an even more ultimate cut. Because I watched a bunch of deleted scenes for this. Like I post them on Reddit. It's like there's like 30 minutes of deleted scenes that are like really big scenes, and they were shot full-fledged. And do you know what's crazy? So this is like I'm just gonna get out of the way real quick. I can post this documentary on Reddit also. It is wild how much footage they had shot that was just canned and stored. Because it's like they did the cut, and that was it. In the 80s they did the cut, and then it went into a warehouse, and it was just stored in a warehouse. And in 2001, the crew that got the definitive final cut edited, they got together and they collected all of it, and it was literally written on the canisters, terminate or destroy, or I can't remember, whatever, just get rid of. Like, it was supposed to, and some lazy ass didn't trash it. Thank God. I think it said like junk it or something, but it's like some just lazy dude just left it on a back lot and didn't touch it. And then in 2001, that crew came together and they got it out and they like digitized everything and they went through it, and like they truly like brought a vision to life. But I almost feel like because they went back and they like, they got Ridley Scott's approval for everything. And I think he was still stuck in his ways for his director's cut. And I think it would have been a lot better if somebody else just took it and freshened it up, because there's some scenes in there that tie things together. And I think that, like, I love the ambiguous ending. I think it's dope, but I really I really like the voiceover, but not all of it. And it could have been stronger. It just sucks.
I know
the
last episode you talked about how much you fucking love voiceover.
I'm finding out now as we do this podcast, and like more movies I watch with voiceover, I like think about it and I'm like, God, I like when it's done well. Clearly that Blade Runner's an obvious like candidate for being done poorly. Yeah. And the thing that sucks is because it was an afterthought.
Yeah,
so
that's 100% just exposition. And, because they thought their audiences were too dumb,
too dumb. Right? And there are parts where we're watching it and I'm like, God, I can't remember exactly. And then, as we're going through it, I'm like, oh yeah, so it's pretty simple. It's just like the four replicants, they kill all the crew that's taking them off planet, and then they like hijack it and come back down, and now they're like, fugitives and all that jazz. And like it's so simple. There's simple things, but like finding out that like his wife died, that's not really clear, and it's really blatant and annoying in the voiceover, because I watched some scenes with the voiceover, and it's like it's sad because that it was like begrudgingly done, and so it wasn't like constructed well. But there are voiceover bits that I'm like, oh, this is nice. It's light exposition.
It's okay,
and it just kind of builds the world a little bit. And so I'm like, I wish there was. Because there's only like 10 lines of voiceover, so it's not like it's
the whole movie's voiceover. Yeah,
I just kind of wish I wish that like it was a little bit more intentional to have voiceover.
Oh yeah, for sure. I could see that being another version of it. I just like I'm just like at this point, just let this movie be what it fucking is.
Yeah, really. I don't want any more.
I don't
care. Happy with where we're at.
Yeah, I don't care about all the extra footage and stuff. Like I think.
I mean, it's beautiful to watch. I'll put the documentary.
It builds a great foundation that I'm just like, I want more Blade Runner content. I want to go watch the anime or whatever now, because they had the the Blade Runner Blackout like short, right, that came out before Blade Runner 2049, and then Blade Runner 2049 I watched the other day as well, and it was obviously awesome still, but I'm like, it ends still pretty open ended, and I'm like. I'm like, I could take more of this world, man. And it's can I
spoiler alert? So what is your? I kind of fucked it over for myself because I wanted to. This was the question I wanted to ask you. I wanted to come with the hard hitting questions. Is Deckard a replicant? And do they explain that in the sequel? Because that's what's hard to talk about this movie contained without the sequel. It's kind of impossible. Spoiler alert. Actually, this kind of. For Travis out there, because Travis called in again, dude. So now we got fucking Travis back on the pod, baby.
There he is.
Welcome back, Travis. Thank you, sir. And we'll get to your message shortly. But maybe Travis, you should turn this off, and then anybody else out in podcast land.
Well, I'm not going to spoil.
I just want to know
2049. I'm not going to spoil it hard,
Well, I'm going to spoil it right now because. So Deckard shows up in 2049.
I know, but he's on all the promotional material, and his name's on the poster, so it's like fine. Harrison Ford. Yeah. It's like starring Harrison Ford.
Oh, true. Okay. Anyways, but the fact that he when he shows up, it is pretty cool and it's great.
It is cool,
but it solidifies. It solidifies. I know, which is dope, and it solidifies the fact that he's not a replicant.
Well,
but the thing is, he is a replicant. That is confirmed by Ridley Scott because he made him. He is a replicant.
But
in the movie, he has the glowing eyes. And he questions his life, and and the origami. Okay, man, I know, we can have this argument, but
I don't want it.
I
didn't want to spend the whole podcast talking about whether Deckard was a fucking replicant.
I can replicant. But we do have to get it out of the way. It
bothers me because this is a rare situation where it is not like purposely ambiguous, nor is it like have a definitive answer.
Okay, true.
It's like ambiguous because of the fucking chaos surrounding the release. So the writer and Harrison Ford and everyone says he's definitely not a replicant. Ridley Scott says he is a replicant, and I think that's just to add depth. But honestly,
but it's like he is okay. Yeah, it doesn't matter. I guess
Harrison Ford said it was he's not a replicant in my mind. 100% not.
Okay,
I think
he can't be because of the sequel unless the Tyrell, once the corporation, once
they specifically say the next model is open-ended life cycle. So
right.
There
is
people who say that he is a replicant. People that say that he is a replicant say that he's like a Nexus 8, like the newest, like a prototype version of that. But
maybe he got implanted that he's like a police officer.
I don't think he's I don't think he's a replicant at all. Because I think that they added the fact that he may or may not be a replicant. Kind of ruined the. It's like another one of those things that's just like a weird open-ended. Like, well, what if he's not? And I chop it up to like, oh, okay. This is just like a more like philosophical wondering of like, oh, okay, this is more like Deckard's character is more unsure about the nature of his own reality because of the origami stuff.
Origami, and it blends in the whole like once you can't tell, does it really matter? That's like what Westworld does a lot of.
Exactly.
It's like if you can't tell the difference, then what does it matter?
It
like
doesn't.
It really
but
it
not
brings
matter.
that up where it's like. It doesn't matter, but we're
point
human.
Of contention. It's a point of contention every time.
We want to have our own autonomy, and we want to know we have free will.
The plot
it's been baked in. That's
dude. I
then
feel
you're
like
done for, dude. If you just had implanted memories, you're done for.
Taking the first movie on its own, I definitely think he's human, and I think if he's a replicant,
no, I agree. I feel like taking just the movie, the first one on its own, he has the glowing eyes, the glinty eyes. Yes, in his apartment, he has the glinty eyes.
I know, but they said that was a straight up mistake in filmmaking.
It was the biggest giveaway. I know, but if we're just taking it at face value,
it ruins the fucking movie. It literally ruins the movie about this human character. He loses his humanity. Right. And he's got the PTSD, and he's like dealing with killing these replicants, and then it ruins his arc if it's like he has that moment at the end where there's like the super famous speech about tears lost in rain, and but it's like he learns that like it's like he has this moment that it's like, oh fuck, he's more human than me, and I'm a human, but then he's like, or am I?
Well, right, and he learns like capacity of caring, and all that.
I do feel like it was Ridley Scott's intention to be like, yeah, he's a replicant, but that's the thing. I'm saying this is such a fucking mess because sometimes the director's intention kind of doesn't matter, and it's so muddled.
Yeah,
because it's like the writer, the actor, and then the sequel. But Denis Villeneuve, he did such a good job, kind of like keeping it ambiguous, because it's like there are still like, he's probably human. But maybe he's not. There's still stuff like that in the sequel, like little bits of dialogue.
Okay, cool.
That like it's still pretty ambiguous, but it's not like a focus point because obviously Deckard's not the main character anymore in the sequel. It's Kay, obviously Ryan Gosling's character, who definitely is a replicant that has
Ryan Gosling.
That has like a fucking a crisis of his own.
Right. Well, and I love that they bring in in the original, they make like. It seems kind of, they just kind of bring it up like it's common knowledge, but then they never like solidify it. That's kind of the thing that happens in this movie is like they don't build the world very well. No. That's like what I'm saying. You have to do homework. So later, after every 10 years after this movie was made, new information would come out, new articles, new writing, and new interviews with all the directors and writers and everything saying like, oh, like solidifying what happened and things, in the world. And so it's kind of like, anyways, you have to do a collection or just watch a YouTube video. But
I don't want to spoil it, but the whole plot of the second one just is a can of worms that leaves even more questions. Well,
I love the thing that gets answered in the sequel. The thing that gets answered is Tyrell's niece doing she's like the precog or whatever that can build not a precog, but some sort of like whatever, like premonition or not premonition. Goddamn, she just builds. She builds
the memories. Yeah.
Everybody's memories. All their conscious. Yeah. She builds every conscious, and it's like it's so sick that she's like a Pixar writer, and she's just writing all these like, what if robots had feelings?
Watch it again because she's a freelancer, and she's not the main one, but she's the best one.
She's the best one. Right. Yeah, of course. But that answers a question, which is so dope. That's where the sequel shines for me.
Exactly.
Is that it builds on the world.
It's its own story in the world that asks similar questions, and it takes the kind of themes from the first one and like flips them on their head and asks it from a more of a different perspective. Where it's like he's a replicant, but like, is he more human than human? And it's like, and then in the first one, it's like, because I don't care about fucking Deckard being a replicant, you know what I mean? But it bugs me that there's not. It's not ambiguous on purpose. It's ambiguous by like disaster. I don't know, which is whatever. Because and then I have to just tell myself because it bothered me. I literally was like, is Deckard a replicant? What's the evidence? Like I want to look at I searched it. I'm like, what is the evidence? Both ways, because I don't like that if he is, but then I've decided it doesn't matter. Because if he is, he ages, which is dumb, and he doesn't have super strength, but whatever.
Right. No, it's kind of almost like it's like fucking what's her bucket, the Rachel. It's like her because she's not special. Like she's just a human.
Everything else that's around it is way more interesting about like. Not only what does it mean to be human, but I've always liked the idea. It's like you're nothing more than your memories, and can your memories be trusted? You know what I mean? It's like your memories shape who you are, which is what they've done with the newer replicants, which makes them more human and makes them have better emotional responses. But it's just like we know in real life now that your memories can barely be trusted. Like you think back to your childhood, and you're like, I have a concrete memory, but it's just like fuck. That's probably 75% accurate at best. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
And it's wild because then I'm sitting there being like, am I human? It's like, is this a simulation? Does it matter?
It almost proves that we are human because our memories are flawed. Our memories aren't very clear. And replicants always remember everything like so perfectly.
Yeah.
And I love that she carries a photo around.
That's explored more in the sequel where they're like, he's like, I have memories, but I know they're fake.
I know,
and,
right, dude? That's so good.
But that's what's kind of interesting too. It's like coming at it from that dynamic. So,
but I love like the little touches, that human touch, where it's like he carries a photo around, and that's like, oh look, I have a photo of me and my mother, and it just like they are human, and that's like the fun.
Yeah,
that's
exactly.
the fun question behind it is like.
It's fun, and they just want to live, Yeah, and I think that's what's interesting because it's like it's sad, like you said that he's credited as this baddie on the script because it's like he's not like I guess technically he is the film's antagonist.
I know,
Roy, but he literally he kills people so he is a bad guy obviously.
They killed the four of them, killed like 23 people, so it's kind of like a gray area.
But it's interesting. That's what makes him so dynamic of a villain, quote unquote, and has been all this time. Like a lot of people say, like the villain of this movie is 10 times more interesting than the protagonist, which is true.
100%.
Because he's just like philosophical. It's not even just him and his like fancy waxing about like his like pondering, like, which is all great, but it's just like that's like the best motivation. It's like you have 4 years to live, and I just want to continue living. Like he's got such a lust for life that he'll fucking kill anyone in his path to get it. And when he can't, and he just like fucking stabs out Tyrell's eyes.
I know.
It's I don't know. It's good, and then he literally is just like trying to get the most out of it before he dies with Deckard. Like he's like his body's like tensing up, but he's like, not yet. Yeah. I think that's like the most powerful shit in the whole movie. It's just like this like fighting of this death and trying to live life to the fullest, even though he's just a robot.
I agree.
Just a robot.
My argument would be like I'm going to bat for Roy here. If he killed 23 people on that ship, you think why would they have these like criminals, because they were criminals being like escorted off planet? Why would they have these criminals with like civilians and or human crew? Why wouldn't they just put replicant crew to transport the replicants?
I don't know. See, that's the thing. And then you would just there's so many,
because that's like the gray area where I'm like they're kind of just like. You can just kill these, like, they use the term slave a lot, which is
Well,
funny
and like that's the thing why I want more of this world, because it's like they build the world up, but then they like kind of like you have questions about like the functionality of this future society and how it would work, and then they just like obviously they're not going to sit and go into it, but I'm sure there's like, I don't know, there's got to be like a comic book spinoff that goes way into it or something. But
I mean, there is a comic book
right?
spinoff, I read a couple issues, and it's not. I don't know. It didn't really get. It was not as philosophical, and I'm sure maybe it gets a little better. Maybe it goes deeper. It was just
I like
kind of
the
this,
philosophicalness of like the main movies, but it's like I'll take something that's like a more nuts and bolts of like how the world works and like all the different cultures and the history of it, and how it came to that. And,
I'm
like,
surprised
all the
this didn't get
families.
a mini series. Like this is ripe for opportunity and a mini.
I know it's sad because it's like it's such a cool. I'm pretty sure who owns it. It's like Fox or maybe I think it's Warner Brothers.
It's Warner Brothers, I believe. Yeah.
And obviously they did the sequel like 30 years after the fact, which was a risk on its own, and it did okay, right? But it was still like not popular enough to like warrant more. But like
Warner Brothers like they have a death grip on this like property.
Well, they have to milk it dry because they're going to realize there is so much potential for it, but it just hasn't been realized yet. Like they just need to realize the potential, but they probably will just try it. They'll make a shitty fucking HBO Max miniseries or like show that they make one season of that's okay and then gets canceled or something. But
I know that's actually a sad reality, dude.
Yeah, so I don't know. This all the writing and like all that aside, it's like what they did here from like a visual perspective and the score, like we were saying, is just like
the score ties it all together.
Well, we've talked about before in cinema. At the end of the day, it's like you watch a movie and you don't remember the plot, you don't remember the characters that much. Like, yeah, it's about the emotional resonance that sticks with you, but it's like something about film with like a combination of like just certain visuals and music that is like kind of what you remember and how you felt in a certain moment. And this movie, I think that's why it stood the test of time so much and is considered such a like classic, is because it's like those moments of like that score set to these huge crazy cityscapes, and then like nobody remembers. Like I completely forgot the weird sexual scene.
Oh my god, that's so rough.
Nobody remembers.
Hey,
like I feel like I saw that and I was like, I literally like had to like stop and be like, am I paying attention enough? Like what is happening?
I got confused because I was like, oh, they were up until that scene. I was like, oh, they've been building tension of the sexual variety. They've been building their relationship. It's like any fucking idiot can understand that, like, oh, okay, yeah, he likes her, and she. It was weird though. Even then, I'm kind of like, she likes him, but she's also just had this like existential crisis where she's like, I'm not real. I'm a replicant. Thought I was real. And then it's almost like in that vulnerability, he was like, oh, baby, let me slide in here and give you some smooches. Some really awkward, disgusting smooches. Let me give you the smooches, the open mouth kisses of a fucking like I just released out of prison 10 years and like I just want to kiss a woman. Like dude, it was. Well, I was like waiting for her to beat her. Like
tell me you want to kiss me. Say it.
I know.
Say it. I want to kiss you.
Like he's got his hand on her throat and he's like, this is what you want. Right?
It is weird though because it's like.
Why they do that?
I don't know. We see her as human. Like, that's what I'm saying. I don't want to give, like, honestly, I'm pretty mixed about Ridley Scott as a whole. But, but it's like, I feel like that scene, you see her as human and you're disgusted by it. And then it's like, but it's weird because it's like, okay, does he see her as human? Is she just like a machine that does? Is he like learning?
But then that kills all motivation for like their frantic getaway at the end.
It does.
Like, well, just like what this is a piece of machinery that you can do whatever you want.
I remember.
With. I don't know. Yeah,
their getaway and their like whirlwind romance, quote unquote, and then also what happens in the sequel. He's like, oh, I was so in love with her and all this. Spoiler. Yeah. But watching this movie, I'm like, she's really not even in it that much, and she's not even a focal point. I kind of wish they would have like I wonder
No,
if
that's
that's where all that footage went, because it's like I feel like
I know, right?
them fleshing out her and her existential crisis would have been more interesting to like their character, because she did just feel like sometimes like an accessory to him. I
mean, I think
she had her own moments earlier on for sure, but then they kind of dropped it in the second half.
Yeah.
But I think that is 100% the chaos that surrounded this movie, and part of the reason why it's so flawed is just like is kind of everyone's trying to grab on to make this. It's like it's a little too big for its britches sometimes. You know what I mean? Especially in the writing department. Yeah.
I totally agree. And I wanna mention real quick though. I love something to be positive. Like it sucks.
I really
because
like
it's
this
so
movie.
it's
I like it
so
a lot.
blatant. I know, and that's the thing. I do too. And I mean earlier.
This is my best viewing of it, and I like it is deep. It's seriously flawed. Like it's got like some fundamental issues, but like even forgetting about its cultural impact on like cinema and sci-fi since, which has obviously been huge, but forgetting about that, like on its own, it is a very good movie in its strengths are strong as fuck. Like that's the thing. Its strengths, like its visual department, it's like overall themes, its music are like fucking A+, but then like the like the combination, like the pacing and the collection of the whole, like everyone trying to hold it together, that's like a, C,
and
that's like a C maybe at best.
It sucks because I want to talk about, like, there aren't that many like threads to this. It's like they only meet, there's only a few characters honestly in this whole movie. Yeah. And so even though the world does feel large and rich, but it's like when JF Sebastian becomes like an integral part of this whole thing, that to me, I think they did a really good job at incorporating his condition, where it's like he's 25 but he has like a growth. It's almost like he's like, that's why he collects, like, and he's a genetic designer or whatever.
That's the bridge, man. Engineer. That's what's so interesting.
And that's the bridge. It's like he has a shortened lifespan.
He's a human with a shortened lifespan, and it's like he can empathize more so. It's like he's the missing link between replicant and human. It's like, what's the difference,
Right. And I like that he kind of harbors the misfit toys, I know.
I like all his toys.
Even though his toys are horrific, but they're amazing. They remind me. It's like fucking. It's like Kubrick, dude. Kubrick,
I got some Kubrick and Terry Gilliam vibes.
Yeah, totally, dude. Yeah, it was his toy shop. Had that and that apartment is a beautiful, that whole building.
That whole
is so cool.
His apartment, and then the whole final sequence that kind of takes place in those buildings. I really loved, and I kind of was missing in the sequel, is because it's like this movie is so noir, and just like obviously the type of story it's telling.
Holy shit, it is shot.
But the way it's shot too, like hardcore noir, but it's like, it's interesting because they still use these Art Deco, classic old noir like buildings to take place in these like really elaborate type mansions. In our time or whatever, but they're so like run down and decrepit that they're basically just abandoned in this, because the city has been built upon it.
Everyone, right? That's what's so dope, is like the old world is underneath, and everyone lives in that like center complex essentially, or around that center complex.
But it's got like it's
you can see the future divide. It's so cool.
It still has that Art Deco film noir, like the heavy lights from outside look.
Yes.
But in this world,
kind of lights spinning,
yeah, exactly. In this world, it's like security cameras and like the decrepit build. Like, this is the ghetto now. Right. I forgot all about that like final chase scene with Roy through those buildings, and when he kills the other replicant who's just showing off her gymnastics. He just kills him.
Well, it's funny, that was actually considered violent. They added that violence in. And it's literally her just like squishing his neck more and then putting her fingers in his nose. Oh, yeah. That's the violence. And then I think there's maybe some more blood. They linger on the blood longer for her gunshot wounds. But anyways,
This
it's just kind of
movie's
funny
not,
because
it's not that violent. Like
not very violent. Not as violent as it could have been in '82. You know, it's like
the sequel is honestly way more violent.
right. Yeah, exactly. And I just feel so bad because it's like there's not enough. There's not enough not enough weight. I don't know. Just every replicant that died, I'm like, we barely got to know you. You know, Roy's the only one that we truly get to know, and that and he dies. He dies in the most poetic way possible. He just shuts down. It's so cool. Like
he gets to have this whole speech where it's like everything in my life is like just gonna be gone now. You know. And
right.
It's like that's like living with mortality, man. Like,
that's what I remember. That's what I take home from
that's
this
what I'm
movie.
saying. That's A plus right there. That's A plus.
Yeah.
Right. But honestly, I do love the scene. I didn't give a fuck about Leon or whatever that other replicant. He was a butthole, and then honestly the other one, but the sex worker replicant that he chases down, like the first one he kills.
Yeah, the one with the snake, dude. Hell yeah.
Yeah, and her running through like that scene did kind of hit with me emotionally, like resonated because it's like
music too, dude.
The music, the visuals, so well. But like you can see the desperation that I feel like comes in later, but it's like on her face, like she just wants to live, man. Like she's just running, and he just like pops her in the back, and she just like crashes through all the glass and all slow mo, and it's beautiful and everything. And then
really cool, dude. You know, you gotta. So I'm putting that documentary on Reddit. Go watch it. They break that whole scene down. Did you know the original version? She's not in that at all. She's not even in a single frame of that. And then they go through and they digitally remaster her and shoot it on green screen and like put her in, and it looks
shut up, really,
dude. It looks seamless. So
what the
so
fuck?
it's funny. We're watching her and we're like, oh, look at this actress's beautiful emotion, and it's really her acting now in the version we watched. But the original version, it's bad, dude. It's a woman in a helmet that's like totally looks like she's got like 5 o'clock shadow. It's like a dude doing like the stunts for her, and it's hilarious. Like it's a really bad wig. And so it's like, yeah, I'll put it on.
Yeah, put it on there because I was literally like, even like, oh, the actress like throws herself through that plate glass, like and she's not wearing much, and I'm like,
no, and it's not truly her, but it is technically her now. Later doing they emoted. In 2006, they got her to shoot it. So they like redid it like 25 years later.
That's crazy.
They got her back in to shoot it, and it's really cool. It's like that.
Put that up.
That
there.
is like
interesting.
That's what I love about this in its entirety of just Blade Runner as it exists is like so many people are passionate about what the world has to offer in this, and like working off of it to build on the world. It's great, and that's what I like. But I don't know, man. What do we have any Reddits today? Did we get?
I'm sure we do. Give me a moment. I got a new phone, so I'm like gotta figure out how to navigate it.
Yeah, I'm glad you actually have a phone now. You're not.
I know. I broke my phone the other day.
I'll give you a money minute real quick while we got this going.
Give me that.
Because I wanted to look up, or I did look up, and I could not, for the life of me, find out what the budget was for the remaster. Because they come together, and like I said, it was a huge endeavor. It was like a year to like categorize and everything, and like they built a library out of it. But they'll anyways, you'll watch the documentary. But it's sick what they did, and they did a lot of work. It's almost like they basically like shot scenes and like did a lot more movie. So I'm like, I wonder what that budget factors in. But anyways,
like
the original
the manpower budget that goes into fixing
it's like and it's they clearly can't count that because they didn't know it was going to happen in '82. So anyways, but the budget was like $30 million, and it grossed 41. So nothing great, nothing bad. It was just kind of like, and it was up against fucking Rocky 3 and E.T. Those were the top two movies.
It's funny that like because we said earlier that The Thing also came out around this time, and like The Thing bombed even harder, and it's like both of these movies are fucking classics to this day.
Compared to like E.T. and Rocky 3, it's like, come on.
This might be blasphemy, but I don't give a fuck about E.T.
I know, dude. I don't either. I guess it's like,
honestly,
I get the nostalgia.
I haven't seen it in like 15 years. But
I want to slice that fat boy up and see what he tastes like, dude. I've always wanted to eat some E.T. meat.
I feel like he tastes
so good.
No, he doesn't. He looks like scrotum.
He looks
like if you just like a giant fucking scrotum.
No, dude, his belly meat looks so tender, dude.
Yeah,
Just
maybe.
cast iron that.
Yeah,
Okay.
a little cast out like that fat.
I've
That
always
fat
wanted-
to render.
Yeah, I don't want him. I don't want him when he's sick, dude. When he looks sick, it's like that's great. He's gray pork, but I want that rich red.
He's pork that you accidentally
meat.
left in the backseat of your car for a day,
Yeah,
but you're
dude.
gonna risk it. So I got a couple Reddits. All right, are you ready? So Zan Pierre says the atmosphere of this movie, everything just came together. Also, the sequel blew my mind. Did not expect it being that good. Yeah, the sequel.
Dude. Yes, the sequel. That's the whole thing. That's what sucks. Is like this movie. I recommend it to people, but I'm like go into it just with the vibes. Go into it with the vibes. I don't.
Yeah, for sure. And then Clones Are People too says he's got a couple, but this one he says. So I watched the final cut last night, and wow, this just blew me away. The set design is just wonderful for a 40-year-old film. It hasn't aged very much at all, except for when you find out that it's set in 2016. I feel like this is seminal for sci-fi in the same way that Metropolis is. Oh yeah, it's hugely influential. He says, I really like the score. It really adds to the world. It sets the pace, tone, and mood at certain points. It's a weird blend of mechanical music, but also reminds me heavily of hymns and religion. Interesting.
Oh, cool.
Thinking about it, it makes sense for the score to be a mixture of the mechanical and ethereal to get across the theme of humanity. I forgot how much of a noir this is 30 years earlier, and we would have been looking at Humphrey Bogart in the title role, right?
Totally.
That'd be
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah.
And then this last point was, so was that scene a sexual assault? Here's my theory. This is a test of the audience. If that scene does make you uncomfortable, then maybe you see the replicants as non-human. If you are uncomfortable with that scene, then you see the replicants as human. It's such a strange scene, and it's so nonchalant. Like, what does that tell us about Deckard? Exactly.
Ooh, dude, well put. I like that.
Yeah,
I like
yeah.
that last sentence there.
Yeah,
That's-
thanks, guys.
True.
Thanks, both of you guys, for commenting. And I know that scene caught me off guard, man. 'Cause
I know.
I
Yeah,
feel like
we
if
could-
they're gonna cut anything, it's
it
like
hurt. For reals, dude. It literally did. It hurt me the most watching it this time.
Yeah.
Everything else about it is like forgivable almost, if
I
you will.
feel
But that
yeah.
scene really did it
I
really
don't-
was such a knee jerk reaction. I what is going
And
on?
I don't want to. Yeah,
the
you know,
actors
it's like,
looked uncomfortable. I don't know.
exactly, and I don't want to excuse it for the time and everything, or whatever it is. And obviously, it's more complicated based on the fact that she's not human. It's like if it was a fucking sex doll, like it was a mannequin, but it had sentience, It's interesting in that way, but I feel like it could have been
It's different
executed
because-
better.
because,
I'm fine with it being uncomfortable, but it's
No,
played totally straight. It's
I
played
exactly.
That's the thing that gets me, man. Is it's played like it's supposed to be like this romantic scene that they added. Oh, here's a scene of them bonding, so you care when they run away together at the end. And I'm like, no, this is could be more nuanced about what is consent if you're a fucking robot? That is an interesting question.
Sure.
But it's not posed that way at all. It's posed straight up hey, tell me you want it. And she's like, I want it, master.
Yeah, no, really, it is. It's like he throws her against the wall.
But then the theme of the movie is they're people too. They're more human than human. So I'm getting mixed messages.
You can't if you bought a sex doll and you beat it up in your room in your house by yourself, that's fine. But if you took your sex doll out on a bus and started punching it, people are gonna be like, dude, this guy is there is some mental health issues.
I'm gonna
here.
do that as a social
So it's
experiment.
that's a social
if my
experiment.
wife will let me buy a sex doll.
Yeah, dude, they're expensive, so don't even try.
I know.
But,
I keep asking her for Christmas, and she keeps telling me no. I just want the butt part.
I don't think I could ever. I don't think I could ever Google used sex doll, used real doll. So
Well, I'm not
never
gonna
doing
fuck
that.
it. I just want to beat it on a bus.
Yes, that's true. Yeah, there you go. Okay, on that note, do you want to? Can we listen to Travis, please?
I got to figure out how to get to
Do you
it.
know how
'cause
to-
again, I got a new phone, and it is
Okay.
a totally different. So, yeah, I can get the Travis. So in the meantime, yeah, thanks Travis for oh god, I got to add a whole other account. Oh,
Thank you guys for.
fuck.
Oh, maybe you can't do this, man. Well, so we should have.
Here, you
I
do
always
it.
say
You
we
do
should.
it.
I always say we should cut here and then. Okay, well, I'm gonna turn it on, and then it's not gonna work very well, and then we're all gonna cry. Okay, I have to. All right, you ready?
Oh, I'm ready.
I
I'm still trying to sign in, but
I really hope that it will. Let's see, make some. Okay.
Hey guys, watching the iconic Blade Runner for the first time was a little disappointing. Not to say I didn't like it, just that it's regarded as one of the best sci-fi movies of all time, and I didn't see it that way. I probably would have liked it more if it wasn't for the creepy love scene between Deckard and Rachel. But after watching it, I got to thinking if the setting of Los Angeles 2019 was chosen as a precaution, that if the people of 1982 don't change their ways, we can have a dystopian world in the near future. After doing a little research, I found out that the movie was based on the novel titled Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep, published in 1968. The original version of the novel takes place in 1992, only 24 years from publication. So for me, Blade Runner is a cautionary tale for us. And look at the similarities of the movie in modern times. The conglomerate Tyrell Corporation that controlled much of the world's direction, one could compare Apple or Amazon to that. The environment and how it was nonstop raining in Los Angeles and filled with smog, aka global warming, or the disparity between the rich and the poor. No need to give an example there, just look at any city in the country. Also the humanoid robots called replicants and how they could think and act as human with superior strength. Alexa and Siri are examples of common AI, not to mention most manufacturing now is done by machinery. Then there's the flying car. That's the one that we're still waiting on. So my question for you two is, what aspects of the movie are you most afraid will come true? And is there anything from the movie you'd like to see happen in real life? Thanks.
Woo! That was a long one,
thanks,
man.
Travis.
Thank you.
It's good to hear your voice, sir.
I know, man. It's
and
nice to have you
it's
back.
interesting to be on the other side because I heard about maybe 40% of it. But
hey, dude.
but I was able to log in, and that's what the buzzing was about. I was able to log in and read about it. So that damn flying car. I know out of everything, that seems to be the one that's least in our grasp, doesn't it?
Well, and I think it's because like there's so many regulations on just automobiles that exist in infrastructure that's already created. And so it's like to build a flying car.
Get rid of all those kind of cars. Just invent teleportation and get rid of all those vehicles.
Oh yeah, teleportation.
That's what I want in my dystopian future. But then it would be like The Fly, or something.
Oh, dude, always, man. People would be grafting into each other.
So, as for your question, what do you got?
I love that question. I think I like the point of like the climate change being factual, because it is that irony. It's like in I was thinking about Who Framed Roger Rabbit when he makes the joke where he's like we're in LA, baby, the best bus system in the world, or whatever, like the best public transit in the world. And and it's like it's not. That's the joke, but it's kind of like that's what I like about this is like that's the satire of it. It's like this is the joke that it's like we're in LA now and it's the future has turned to this.
And all it does is rain, and it's probably rain that's gross and full of microplastics.
Sure. Well, see, that's the thing. Yeah, there are things they can't even like think of that happen because it's like we're here and they've happened. I think the one thing that no one's mentioned yet, and I love it, is Boston Dynamics. They are legitimately building this kind of shit that does that, dude. They got fucking police dog robots. Like Boston Dynamics is like they're the evil Tyrell Corp. Like they're not like they're Skynet essentially. It's like that's what we're looking at. It's like
the thing I want to see from this universe, in our universe, is I want to see us as a species leave the planet and colonize our solar system. Even though in this movie it's built on the backs of fucking replicant slaves.
That's kind of what we're at now.
Yeah,
like,
exactly. And I mean, they even say that in the sequel. It's like no great step in human history hasn't been built on the back of a disposable workforce. And obviously that's terrible, but like I would like to, that's if I was going to take anything away from this dystopian society is to know that like we get off of Earth, because all it takes is Earth is destroyed and then all of everything on Earth is gone forever.
Our resource wars cause us to
yeah, and I mean that's
the
obviously
planet.
a matter of time.
Right.
And as far as what I'm most afraid of, I don't know. I think most likely it's like the giant corporations owning everything. But at the end of the day, I'm like, I guess that beats us all eating each other. I don't know.
I don't know.
I don't know, man.
I think it's a bummer because they didn't really capture how it should be. I don't know. It is. That's what's great. So I was calling this like a soft dystopian because it is like it's clearly framed as dystopian. It's like, you know, overcrowded and dirty and stuff. But it like
I feel like that's just
it's not as oppressive, I feel like, as like Brazil or
exactly,
you know,
yeah,
as like 1984 or something like where
right.
like
I can agree with
it's
that.
a lot like the government is like more fascist.
Like
I mean,
people are still living.
fascist,
That's the thing. It's like if anything, it's
Right.
somewhat optimistic because it's like even though to us it looks hellish and like that, but it's like people are there living their best lives, man, and it's like
right. Well, and it is kind of we are already grappling with this idea of like automation. Like, you know, Travis mentioned that a little bit. And they're like, that's the thing that scares me the most. I'm pro automation, but only if we can have like socialism or mutual aid that is structured, that has a larger structure. Because the fact, like, once you start like cutting jobs,
we're gonna get automation under the capitalist system, and so
I know, and it's gonna crush every marginal group to dust.
Because there's just gonna be profits for me. Go fuck yourself, bud.
Well, right. I mean, yeah, it'll essentially. Oh, and it'll be the same thing where it's like it'll still be like, oh, sorry that we automated this entire warehouse. You still need a job. It's like, what the fuck? That's the thing
quit
that
eating
scares me the
avocado
most.
toast, you know. And
I know, right?
Well, you can't afford your rent. Fuck you.
Yeah. So that's the crazy ass shit where I'm like, and a free reign of fucking. I mean, we've already militarized our police, but it's like this show is like straight up just like murder them if you think they're a replicant. Like, what is that autonomy? Like, what is that? Like, we'll give that. Oh my god, it's like the police already have that ability now. It's like it's even more. It's even more like enforced then, or whatever. You're just like relaxed.
I do think also, other than the colonization, I do think this version of AI is pretty optimistic too, because usually AI comes down and just like immediately sweeps us up and crushes us. But I like this version of it. It's like they have their own struggles and they're way more human because they were made in the image of humanity than like most other like dystopian films dealing with AI. So it's like, honestly, I think this is probably not for them, but like a best case scenario when it comes to like automation, I guess.
I think it could theoretically
where it's like, oh, fuck,
build a utopia.
Yeah, we've made we've basically become the whole like godlike, like creating something else that is just as impactful as ourselves as humans. It's it's interesting that it's just like with all the weaknesses that makes us human, which is interesting that they would even. But that's a whole other can of worms too, because it's like if there's
that's called eugenics. Like if you start weeding people out, you start building a whole society that is nothing but replicants, essentially.
Robots, yeah.
Right.
But that's the thing. It's like, why, if that's their reason they exist, then why even make them have emotions? Why even give them skin? You know what I mean? Like if they're just fucking slaves and sex puppets at this point, you know what I mean? It's like, why bother? And then, yeah, exactly.
Well, and that's Tyrell's hubris too.
But
he
in
wants
the sequel,
to make them in the image of man. It's like,
in the sequel,
godlike.
They're like probably like most of the cast, at least 75% is replicants.
Yeah.
So it's like that they are like the regular day-to-day people, you know what I mean, that kind of just run everything in this. And I think that's why.
And I think
that's why I really like the sequels. It expands on the ideas of the world.
Yeah.
More.
Yeah. I think the sequel is like I was telling people at work today. I'm like, the sequel is a guaranteed watch. Go watch it. You don't even really need to watch the first one. I recommend watching the first one because it helps, but you really don't need it.
You don't need it as much, other than you just. You do have to know who Rachel is, or you're gonna be lost. But.
Yeah.
But it's not that hard. But honestly, Denis Villeneuve does a good job of kind of like, if you watch the whole movie and pay attention, it's like you can figure it out on your own without having watched the original.
Yeah.
If you wanted to, you know what I mean? It's not. Yeah, I don't think it's like totally necessary because it doesn't build on like, yeah, it builds on Deckard's story, but it's like everything about it
It's
is
peripheral.
a new story though.
Yeah.
It's like it's still his story.
And Kay's relationship with his joy is like
so good.
That's that alone, honestly,
so
it's like
good.
such a good like Kay's journey to find his humanity, and then it's like that relationship.
And she's even less human because she is just straight up AI and a
She
hologram.
is,
But
it
it shows
she is a sex robot.
Yeah, and it does
Like,
show
literally.
essentially like her own growth. She's the most.
She's the most Alexa-like.
Sequel rules. We'll go on.
Sequel rules, dude. She is like Alexa. Like everyone can have a joy in their home. It's like you just.
All right. Let's wrap it up. Blade Runner is
amazing.
complicated.
What was your favorite scene? Yeah, that's a great way to call it. It's complicated but good. What was your favorite scene? Knock that out.
Gosh, I don't know. Like it's hard to beat the ending. Like I think the ending is just really great. Like the climax on the roof is just like so memorable with the music and the acting and blah blah blah. It is hard to beat that, but I do really think that shootout scene for something that could just be so basic, like that is kind of a testament. But now I got to go back and watch that documentary because, like you said, because I was going to say that's a testament to taking something that could be so simple on paper, like he shoots her running through the street, and like elevating it
all
to make
the action.
this more.
Yeah, all that action's real. That was all. Like what they did in post was really just correct her head and like.
That's huge props to taking that and making it affect the story, and then immediately, cuts to Deckard and he's like goes and buys a drink and like he's just like, that's a small moment of his like PTSD and like we don't get that much of his character building, and so I feel like that was a moment of him just like he's shook by it a little bit, and that's a good instance of like visual storytelling. That whole scene that they think that's probably my favorite.
Yeah, my favorite scene by far is when they meet with like the guy. I don't know the guy that makes the optics. He's the eye guy. Chu is what they call him, I think, right? Maybe.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
Is it Chu? Yeah. Anyways, yeah. That dude, that scene, that's like the best introduction to a villain ever. Like, or I don't know. At least I loved it in that moment. It's like finding out how menacing he is, finding out that like they're in this like super cold thing, like it just that kind of like they're definitively robots, and like it's kind of dumb that he like sticks his hand in a thing to like prove it. Where I'm like, it's enough that they like took the jacket off of him and he's freezing to death and they're fine. That's enough. But anyways, he stuck his hand in. They did that. They do that a couple times just to like prove that they're to definitively prove they're replicants. But anyways, that scene is great. That like that conversation where he's just like he's trying to like suss it out, and he's like, oh, they tell me how to get to Tyrell and all that, and then he's just like, I don't know how to get to Tyrell. And
that's some of the most coherent shit in the whole movie is like his Roy's plotline of like how they get the thread to get to Tyrell.
Yeah. And that's great.
Whereas Deckard, on the other hand, is just like, oh, you're running into him, I guess, in the city of like billions of people or whatever.
It's so, that it is kind of rough. Yeah.
They're like in the same intersection, like three of them that he's looking for. That's great. That's convenient.
Yeah, and he kills him, and like, it's like, it literally is like One Punch Man.
Rachel
like,
kills the guy. Like
I know Rachel kills that guy.
He doesn't.
Yeah.
He's pretty passive, which is annoying.
Yeah.
But
I know.
It's fine. I honestly don't think it's really about him, but
No. I mean, God, this is just a beautiful looking show. But I wanted to say, if you liked this show a lot, I highly recommend watching Animatrix.
Yeah,
you go.
I was gonna say,
you watch the Animatrix.
I want an Animatrix version of this, like telling the history. But that is what I want.
Tells the history, because Animatrix tells the history in the most beautiful way possible.
Yeah,
Animatrix is like clearly the Matrix is heavily influenced by this. So it's like,
oh yeah, clearly.
And one last little tip that I thought was really fun: how they got the glint in the eyes is practical. And it's a technique they learned from Fritz Lang. So there you go. They learned from the sci-fi.
Because that movie owes to they mentioned Metropolis, and it's like Yep.
That's what I was saying that too. Yeah, this is Metropolis. Metropolis, put it to film.
Yeah, this owes that. I mean, that's the grandfather of like all sci-fi cinema, pretty much though. So
yeah.
Anyway, so the movie's pretty cool. So I actually don't know. So we're doing
This is the first time it's been this neck and neck.
It's
dude.
neck and neck, and
Have you seen that?
It hasn't ended yet. It's going to end in the morning, so I'll post it. So we're still doing movie scores, and if already this will be probably one of the best months for what movies we watch, because it's definitely between Jurassic Park and There Will Be Blood, and either way, Godfather, Blade Runner, and then one of those is like a great run.
Right.
But I know I voted for There Will Be Blood.
Yeah. I know. I voted Psycho because I voted early, and then Psycho was like 2 votes when I voted, and like the other 2 were like at 12 or 15.
I knew Jurassic Park would be the big one, and so I was trying to put big movies to go with it, and I was like, oh, I won't be mad about any of them because I had just watched Scott Pilgrim, and that probably would have been my choice otherwise, but I just watched it recently, so I'm like, that'll be fine, you know.
I love it.
But yeah, we'll see. I don't know. It's been pretty close, but we'll maybe next tune in. Go to the Reddit to find out, or we'll be posting on social media in general what movie it's going to be. And it's going to be probably one of those 2. There Will Be Blood or Jurassic Park. So, and they're both great scores, which is awesome. So, you know, we got our John Williams and then we got my Johnny Greenwood. So, for There Will Be
Pretty
Blood.
exciting.
So, we'll see.
Find us on Instagram, and you can go to our Patreon and check us out there. Your support helps a lot. If you'd like to call in like Travis did today, feel free to dial 801-613-1501. We'd love to hear from you.
Right on. Am I a replicant? Okay.
I know.
Goodbye.
Goodbye.